Hello there. Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning. And thanks for joining us. We had a lot of great topics. We just finished one last week, really on just the agile piece of this, and wanted to dive a little deeper on more of the hybrid, so blending both agile and waterfall. What are some not only methods to do that, but also some tools we can show you here at the end, and really just sort of opening that communication. Now, I know there's a lot on the market today, a lot of different things that are out there. We have talked to a lot of software companies. We've been implementing a lot, and we are still a Microsoft, tried and true. Lead with Microsoft because that's where a lot of the collaboration's happening. That's where a lot of things are being pulled into from the daily activities. However, each individual is really going to manage their work in an environment that they want, meaning an application. So we're going to get all into all of this and really talk about some of those ways that you can not only maximize your success, but really take it to the next level in incremental steps. And you don't have to do it all at once. Well, before we get started, though, wanted to just remind everybody out there that we are doing webinar series. They are Tuesdays, and then we have them posted up onto our site. So, we're really excited about some upcoming webinars. And you can see that, to round out March here, we're going to be getting into tracking project success. We've heard a lot of people, are using the planner tool from Microsoft and really need to leverage a little bit more and really expand upon that. And that's where we're going to pull in the Power Platform, particularly Power BI for reporting. And then also, really getting into our selected modern PPM tool, which is OnePlan, and we're a partner, a premier partner of theirs, and showing you how you can do not only portfolio and project management, but it sort of blend into that strategic management piece of that. Then in April, spring's going to be the air for New England. Hopefully, for a lot of you folks, you're already having some nicer weather out there. But we're going to start getting into more advanced features of Microsoft Planner. So really helping you get into how you can use that. There's been a really overwhelming request for, hey, with this really cool tool called Planner, what can we do with it? And also explaining the difference in the between Premier and regular. And then we're going to talk about another really thing that's dear and near to a lot of people's hearts, which is how do you manage those budgets? And even more, how do we get into the financial piece of it? So, are you looking at your annual planning cycles? What are you actually capturing? All those Excel spreadsheets that you currently have out there, how do you get those into a nice, easy managed system? Or how can you pull that information in to see it all in one area so you can then not only track the costs, but we'll talk about benefits and realizations afterwards. All right. So we do have, a few things here on the agenda that we're going to be talking about. Number one is going to be in and around just understanding, and really what's the definition term, if you will, for hybrid project management, but also where has it come, in the last X day, X weeks, X months, and actually years of this evolution. It's been around for a while, right? And depending on how you're involved with your project and portfolio management organization, you may be already doing some of these things. However, how does that compare to really the agile versus the waterfall methodology? And can you have both of them? If you answer yes over a resounding yes, you can absolutely do that. And what are sort of those techniques and again tools that you can have to go ahead and do those? We're going to talk about some best practices there, and then how do you actually go ahead and design that approach? Where do you start from? Do you just put everything in the system, blend it all in, and hope for the best? Or are you actually doing this with a little bit more method? And what are those? So our team came together and put together some, just a nice little picture. And the first thing is really going to be, sort of the what, right? So on the left-hand side, it depends on how big these circles are, and everybody knows their Venn diagrams. Things are going to cross the middle. That's going to be the hybrid space that we're talking about. But from an agile perspective, if you weren't on our webinar last week, or you just sort of dancing around what that means, it's going to be a little bit more flexible, right? Iterative, incremental approaches as you go through things. The true definition, you'd have something over in the backlog, you move it over into different entity groups. They call them sprints, depending on what you're doing there. And then you go through these sprints, and what you don't finish in a sprint, you put back into the backlog, right? And you sort of keep doing this in this feedback, right? And keep going and going and going until you get your end product or products, okay? And when I say product, I use that in a loose term of what are you trying to deliver? It could be for an IT organization. It could be rolling out enhancements to a particular application. For someone else, it could be a little bit different as far as the manufacturing area, and maybe you're retooling a line set or something like that, right? So Agile is across all industries. Now, waterfall on the other side is really where you're taking more of a serial approach. You call it linear, but you're actually doing some planning, then you're actually developing, then you're doing, the rollout and the Q&A and everything else. Very simplistic example there, but you get what we're talking about. A lot of people understand that. A lot of project managers like to fall back into more of a waterfall approach. I'm not saying it all has to go A to B to C to D, but it does go top left all the way down, and then you have a result there. You define your stages and your phases, you roll those out, you get buy-in and accord from the stakeholders, right, through different sets of not only requirements, but also the deliverables that are going to come out there. Everything is documented, right? And then you go through your stages and pops something, and in and along the time frame you're actually looking back and forward at your schedule, saying, hey, I believe as a project manager that we're on track. Schedule, you guys remember all those color charts. That's the typical project management that most people are used to. Now you put those both together and you're going to get this hybrid approach. Now a lot of people call it, some people call it affectionately wagile, right, or scrum guile, or something in there that sort of mixes all these different methodologies. But as we know from hybrids and hybrid cars, all we're doing is taking two really good solutions and trying to put them in the same bucket. But for what, right? The consumer or the folks that are actually using it. And in this case, we as portfolio or project managers might find a real good use of a hybrid tool because we can take in different projects. Not every project is going to fall in one camp or the other. Maybe they are a little mix of both. And how can we actually not only manage those, but roll those up and see from a portfolio perspective across all resources, right? Across all, and you fill in the blank. How can we get that information, really pulling from those? So we're talking about those benefits, and you get to have both, as the outline shows, sort of blending that and getting a combination, if you will, of maybe phased deliverables with iterations, right? Or taking something and getting customer feedback, maybe not so incrementally, but having different check-in points that you have there. So each one of these solutions that you're developing is really going to be, you know, around your organization and how can you succeed and do that, right? So again, what we're trying to do is, as a PM group or maybe your PMO group, is to accommodate all of these different project managers or stakeholders that are asking for these different results as an intern, or how they're actually doing and managing that project, right? Pretty straightforward. Now, this will enhance collaboration across the organization. As you start to pull in more organizations that are doing different things in different methodologies, you're going to get more feedback. You're going to get more participation, or maybe even more boots dragged, right? People that say, nope, I'm not doing that. I like my old way. Well, if you can really foster and harness that emotion, if you will, or that response, right? Could be visceral, and sometimes that response to, hey, I don't like change, okay, versus, hey, this is the way I'm used to doing it, and I don't see the value in the other way, right? And we could sort of take that, harness it, and say, okay, here are the benefits. This is why the other group's doing it this way, or this is why we're doing this. There's a place for everybody in this hybrid system, and that's really the key to the success. So when you go through and the team sort of put this together, which is I think pretty nice, right? So if you're looking across, your approach, think of Agile as more iterative and waterfall sequential. Flexibility, you get a high level of flexibility with Agile, meaning you start going down, hey, it's not the path we want. Let's just push that back. We didn't finish it. Throw it back into the, a bucket or get it out of this sprint. We're just not going to finish it, right? And then we move on. Waterfall, yep, you're sort of going. You got dependencies and different things. You can't get something done until something else has been completed, right? The formula, excuse me, of your predecessors and successors. Both documentation, a lot of organization say Agile could be minimal. There is still documentation that you need, where Waterfall tends to be, let's get all our requirements, let's get them approved, let's go forward that way, right? And then next is going to be really how you should use it. More dynamic projects are going to be Agile, more predictive projects are going to be Waterfall. And as you take all those, you sort of blend them in, you start to get a sheet like this. When should you use something? So you could use this tool, and please do. If you have some comments or like to change it, or have some pointers that you see that you say, hey, this is great, but we also add these few things, write us back or put a comment here in the recording out here on YouTube. Right, so let's go through this at a high level. We already talked about what they're best for, and that's that first one. But let's bring this into real life terms. So project types, right? Your Agile is going to be your software development, as I mentioned, maybe some design effort, marketing campaigns could be there as well. I already talked about the manufacturing, getting into more of a waterfall. However, if you're doing line adjustments and different things like that, you could a little bit of both. What if you have the software piece of what's on a manufacturing line, but you also have the physical equipment? That is a really good example of something that could be potentially hybrid, where you're doing a little bit of your IT and you're also doing real line development with actual physical product, right? And the key factors, just to highlight a few, when you're looking at hybrid, this is where you're really going to take a high level planning, right? However, after that, you're going to be more iterative. We do this with our current rollouts today. If we're doing a PPM solution rollout or a modern PPM upgrade, right? We're actually going to do it and get those requirements and confirm everything so the scope is there. But then we're going to do iterative development cycles. And it's these different cycles, depending on your organization, how fast, how quick, and how you do it, but also who's receiving this. So who's the client, who are the stakeholders that are actually going to have that information. How many can you do? What's the cadence of them? How good are they at this sort of hybrid management? And really, at that point, you're really talking about agile development there. How good are you as a team to do that, right? That's going to be a major factor in which one you choose. Um, Large teams that need to be structured and coordinated, right? This is great. Good. So you folks do your little thing over here. You folks that are going to be, go working quick, do your agile, let's get that in and out. Let's move these things. Let's show secret of small successes, if you will, and really get this out the door. So that's really a really nice slide that sort of encapsulates everything from the three parts. Now, when you're moving into more of your project models, now while you have your different type of hybrid, now like I said, there's tons of different hybrids out there, but the team, sort of went out there, polled our clients, but also, did some research and came back with three. All right. So there's the one that I just talked about, which is more the agile and waterfall phase, sort of blended together and off we run together, and people get that. There's also the parallel hybrid, and the parallel hybrid is where you're managing, think of it, a program of projects, if you will, sort of managing some agile aspects, but also the waterfall. And these could run overlapping, they can run concurrently, parallel, however you want to do, but that is the name. So you're sort of running multiple things in tandem and you're getting an output, right? They all need to contribute, not just a program of, hey, we're going to provide, X percentage of market growth as being a program or a portfolio. No, we're actually really figure out what is the outcome of this project, right? And we have to do these initiatives to build through there. Blended hybrid, okay, that is really going to be, well, the example that I gave you. It's more of a waterfall approach with iterative, agile iterations in there. So that's what PPM Works does with our development and our rollouts, like I mentioned earlier. So understanding that there are multiple ways to do this is really just opening the door to say, listen, you folks can do as you wish, right? But how do you actually do that? Well, that's what we want to talk about. So there are a lot of key factors here. And again, this is another great, just like take this and, figure out if this is really, good for you or not. Um, and when you do this, from the first one, you're going to, define scope, right? So everybody needs to define the scope. We understand that, some projects are smaller, some projects are bigger. You don't have to go through all these steps. Let's say your average, mid-sized project that you're actually going to put some discerned effort into. You might have some project management involved and you want to get an outcome and you're going to have to provide some information to some stakeholders at some point. A lot of people might have a misrepresentation of agile where they say, okay, agile means no deliverables, no budget. And I hear people laughing on the other side of this recording, but it's actually, we hear that a lot. Hey, it's agile. We don't need to do documentation, or no, it's agile. We don't really need a budget, right? Well, your stakeholders don't play that game, right? They need to make sure that it's on budget and they're getting things out the door, right? So you need to identify, areas where um, you might be able to be flexible, and ones you might be more rigid, I like to say, or fixed in this case. You need to determine what those deliverables are. This is where regulatory and other compliance really comes in when you're doing this. Number two, you're going to jump into identifying which components, right, within a hybrid. Is this entire thing hybrid, or do we have little sections, right? Maybe project planning or compliance, right? Different areas that you have here are going to be more waterfall, more predictable, right? Agile, you're going to be doing, like I mentioned, software design, et cetera. So things that can be flexible, right? So when you're planning, you might have the waterfall, you're doing some development. Again, you do those sprints and other things. And then you get back into your deployment, which might take a little bit of both, but more waterfall, right? We're going to do some documentation, roll this out, and really get that user feedback. Now, that might be iterative, right? But iterative along the point of blending that hybrid mix. You got to do some governance, right? And people say, how can you have governance in an agile environment? Well, you sort of, you do. There's governance. It doesn't have to be so, I use that word rigid and strict, but how you need to define sort of how they're all going to work, right? So how do your teams collaborate with each other? How can you use tools, which are about to show, to do all that, right? Using Microsoft Teams, our modern PPM tool, OnePlan, whatever it's going to be. How do you actually get that, set up the rules of communication, and get that information out? Who needs reporting? What does it happen, right? You're going to break these down into individual phases and sprints. That's how you're managing at the lower level. You're going to have waterfall milestones, right? You have your iterative approach. And so you have your different paths of reporting back, right? So figure out what that workflow is going to be when your inflection points are to produce or relay that information, or potentially an iterative, you're going to push back the work that hasn't been done, and you're going to move forward to another sprint, right, with new work that you can be done. A lot of organizations use this with release planning and things like that. And then you're going to need to choose some tools, right? This is what we're all about, right? Is figuring out that collective tool that's really going to be nice and easy for you to use. And that's going to be the best, right? Get a tool that's going to, brings in other tools like some that are listed here, Microsoft Project, Asana, Jira, right? All these different things. We've done integrations with ServiceNow, Oracle, any sort of financial tool that's out there. And then when you track your waterfall metrics, budget, time, compliance, you also are going to have things, like tracking last week when I showed you the velocity charts and the burn down charts that people that are core to Agile, really take with them. And then lastly, you need to hold, and this is more the Agile piece of this, but they call them retrospectives, right? To, refine that process. Think of it lessons learned, and typically the lessons learned in a waterfall project are at the end. Similar, you're going to have different retrospectives, but after each sprint. So after your sprint and your development or your effort that's there, you have a retrospective, right? So we're going to keep having these things in and say, how can we do, based on the last one, how can we make this a little better for the next, right? Before we get done with everything. How can you incorporate demos, like of real things that you're designing, creating, mock-ups, things like that. how do you get that in the hands of people just very quickly so they can actually provide that feedback and help you, really get through the next one. Um, and then best practices, we talked about this. I'm going to show you a tool here, and then I'm going to get you guys on your way. But best practice for hybrid management, I think this is a little repetitive because we've already talked about this, but you really need to, it hinges on several best practices um, that really can help you enhance how you're managing, right? And that's the key from a collaboration perspective to overall project outcomes, putting those together. So you need to foster that communication across teams, whether you use a tool like Microsoft Teams or a tool set to get that information out. People need to be in the know. You need that selection of that tool that we just talked about. You need to have the roles. So understanding what roles, who's going to be there, it eliminates waste and overlap, but it also gives authority and allows people to be responsible, right? It gives them ownership. They can take on the task and they can help out in the overall. And then lastly, continuously reviewing and adapting. That's with anything. You hear that time and time again. But this process really allows, the teams to reimagine how the agile will happen and how we can, really respond to those different changes that are out there or requests that happen. Hey, we have this, something that's coming in. We could be in the middle of development. We need to remember governance. Do we finish that out, right? That sprint, and then next we evaluate what's in the backlog, what are we looking forward for the next sprint, and how does that mirror up to those waterfall deliverables that we talked about pushing things out the door. So all of this can lead to a more cohesive, a productive project management environment, but also that experience for the end users, right? And that's the key, is making sure we're not just doing this because it's a fun word to say and we might have some cool tools out there, right? You need to go in and figure out how this is all going to work for yourself and, get this stuff to start working for you. All right. So let me go ahead and share a screen and we're going to get right into a tool. So this is one of our hybrid tools that's out there. So modern PPM, what we do is we lean on our partner OnePlan for more of the portfolio and the strategic project planning. But what this does is amazing, right? We just talked about how you could do parallel hybrid, right? And really manage some different things. Well, within this, notice we have some capital, we have some planning, some IT projects. Some of these people are using, agile tools. Some are using waterfall tools, more of the project for the web. And you can see some people are just managing projects through teams and collaboration. So all of this information, right, that you're using, again, we're being able to collect this and we're looking across not only views out here, right, seeing our timeline, but also estimated starts, finished. If you want budget information, right, very quickly move over to the financial area and we can see all that information. We can see our budget, our forecast, etc. Each one of these views, you can go ahead and put out that Gantt chart very easily. This can be drag and drop, and really what you're looking at is a consolidated list of all of our activities, whether they're agile or um, waterfall or hybrid, like we just talked about, and actually be able to manage those. So a couple different things when we're going in here and looking at some of these, and let me just take one of these social media. It doesn't really matter which one I do. Let's go ahead and take this one for a second. As I go into here, we have our system integration. Okay. Depending on what you choose, notice right here, we have a program. We're actually doing agile development within this program. Why is that? Because we're doing iterative approaches. Again, there's some governance here, but there's also that part of waterfall where we're going to take business cases and use and all this good information and put it into the system as we go forward. We do have a workflow that's involved in this, okay? And we go from start to finish all the way down, right? Now that is the makings or the start of your hybrid solution that you're going to be actually working on. Now, as you start to progress through, you might want to actually see some of this information. You might want to see some the actual people say agile, you start thinking Kanban board. You could see these initiatives in a Kanban board across whatever you want. Notice right now we're doing totals as the budget. The color right here, my friends, is happens to be status, right? Active, closed. This is for the entire initiative or the project in this case. I could very easily change this to business unit, right? And I could show those different colors if I wanted to. It really is up to you as an organization to go through there and really figure out what you're looking at and what you want to be looking at. Another area that we'll take a look at is here the backlog, right? So you could actually have a backlog of your particular project. You can move that into the particular portfolio and off you're running. From a dashboard perspective, again, a lot of folks say, okay, great, this is good information, but how do I get this information out? You're going to be leveraging that Power BI. So I need to sign in. So I go ahead and sign in. There it is. It's going to pull all that information, and then you'll have a list of reports that you can use, right? So you can see that summary information or timeline. You can go out and see your velocity reports that you have for anything, your health trend that's coming through, and see the status of where things are. Now, a lot of this is not just glitz and glam. You're actually getting into your project sets, you're understanding where you are, and you're doing this all across a hybrid model, right? Of how do you actually manage and get work done. All right. So I could keep going on and on about this, but again, I just wanted to show you just a really quick, way on how you can use a tool, what some, best practice tools are that are out there. And again, you can see how you can pull in all sorts of information, okay, across all types of projects, whether that's agile, waterfall, hybrid, etc. You could bring them in. Lastly, I did want to just show a quick view. If we get into maybe a project here, and I want to go ahead and let's just go ahead and create. Um, Actually, you know what? I think I've already showed that, but I want to show it just real quick. If we go off and create a new project, now you can create it now, but you can have AI create this, right? So let's say there's an AI adoption, and we want to do AI adoption. And we want to do a agile project with waterfall, waterfall deliverables, right? Now this is going to be our definition of hybrid, and we want to go ahead and say, yep, let's go ahead and do that. And there's our here. We're going to go off and say, we're going to add this in, boom. Let's go off and do this. I'm going to go off and grab that information. It's going to start creating some of this for you. So what I'm showing you is the AI. It's helping you out. We're doing the hybrid that's here, and we're going to start creating a blend of those project tasks, and then we can select more. We can add them in. Here we go. Actually, we're bringing in. We need a business unit. Sure, I'm going to go and put this, excuse me, in our IT area because they're doing AI adoption, right? And if we go off and take a look at our particular information, right, we can start to see all of this information. And let me just go into here and grab that one that we just did. Whoops, sorry, AI adoption up top. And folks, as you're starting to create all this information, it's going to go off and create everything that we just talked about. All right, so here's my description. It's going to go through. You can actually create your plan as well, your details, and off you run. So folks, I did want to just sort of circle this back and let you know that if you are looking for additional webinars out there, or you actually want to know what we're doing in the future, come back to us. Come back to us, subscribe. Let me just go ahead and present this again. So here are our webinars that are coming up that we talked about. There we are. Resume that. And what we want really to understand is, make sure you subscribe to our channel. Let us know if there's any comments that you had. Let us know how it's working out for you, right? If you saw something today, whether it was in the demo or something that we talked about, and you want a little bit more information, reach out to us at info@ppmworks.com. We also do workshops. Our team's great at it, right? Sometimes we get funding from, OnePlan or or Microsoft actually go in there and do that with you. So reach out to us, see if that you're eligible for it. I always like to connect, so my information's up on the screen. Go ahead and connect with me. Reach out to us for any answers or questions that you have, and make sure to tune in to these webinars that we talked about. If you see something up here you want, go ahead and register today. Make sure that you're out there so you get that, but also let us know, is there anything else out there that you're looking for? All right. Well, I know today we went just about 30 minutes. That's what my timeline is to stop, I was told. I want to thank you for joining us. Everyone at PPM Works thanks you for all the collaboration that you're doing and pushing your teams right into these new areas. It may be uncomfortable, right? But that's okay. Reach out for help. Tell us how you're doing, and also share your successes. Make sure that that's marketed as each and every project that you deliver, or within those retrospectives that you're doing. Make sure people are aware of those and hearing about them, and gather that steam for your next project. For all of us at PPM Works, thanks very much for taking your time and listening to us. And we look forward to seeing you on the next webinar. Have a great day. Bye now.